The NFL will soon need to make decisions on fifth-year options for 2021 first-round picks. How might those decisions go? We're going to explore that today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank you and give you a big shout out and welcome to all of our everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started.
Joe, we do this show every year. We usually have a 2/3 percentage we end up saying yes on for what we think should happen with these fifth-year options. Is that setting the table appropriately?
It is. I have the real data, though. For the players last year that were decided on for the 2020 NFL draft, 12 of those got picked up. The year before, 19. The year before that, 20. The year before that, 16. The year before that, 15.
So it was 12 last year.
It's a 5-year low. Yeah, last year, but not the low. Like, certainly there were some lower years before 2016.
Okay. So that's good data. And I think this will be a more favorable class than 12. Although I guess, did some of those 12, did they bypass the fifth-year option altogether? And
yeah, there's a few of them. There's a few that just get extensions. Yeah.
That may work against this group. We shall see. Let's dive right in. We got 32 picks to cover, and some of them will be easy, and some of them won't.
Yeah.
2021 NFL draft class after your third season. As a reminder for anybody who is not familiar with the fifth-year option protocol, there are 4 tiers of incentives, playtime incentives, accolades that players are able to qualify for that determines what the value of their fifth year is. There's a basic tier, which is just you're still under contract on your rookie contract. There's a playtime incentive for after your first 3 seasons. If you are 75% of snaps or greater in 2 of those 3 seasons, average of 75% or greater in all 3 seasons, or 50% or greater in all 3 seasons. Any of those 3 would qualify you for the tier 2 playtime, which is an increase in pay when you go from tier 1 to tier 2 and tier 2 to tier 3, so forth and so forth. Tier 3 and tier 4 is very simple. If you get 1 Pro Bowl in your first 3 years, you are a tier 3 player. And if you get multiple Pro Bowls in your first 3 years, you are a tier 4, which maxes out your value on your fifth-year option. And that, I believe, is equal to the franchise tag tender for the fourth tier qualifier.
Got 3 of those this year.
We do, which feels like a high amount.
Yeah, it's healthy.
To be honest.
It's healthy. Yep.
So this was a really good class for just about everybody other than quarterbacks, which
right
is where we'll start this conversation here.
Yeah.
The first 3 picks being quarterbacks.
You know what's funny? I know we got to get into it. There's a lot of parallels between this draft class and the one that's coming up, right? We had 3 quarterbacks in the first 3 picks and then 3 playmakers, right? Pitts, Chase, Waddle. Then we get another quarterback at 11, kind of what we're thinking with maybe in this year, a tackle mixed in there in Penei Sewell, who's awesome, right? There's a lot of parallels,
it was a good tackle class too, but you're like, when's this tackle going to come off the board?
Yeah. There's a lot of parallels. Hopefully the quarterbacks this time around are better.
You don't get first defensive player till pick 8.
Yeah. It's very similar.
Oh, and that might be a show. All right.
Yeah.
But we're going to start with Trevor Lawrence.
It's a yes.
Who hit the playtime qualifier for his 5th-year option. So he's a tier 2, which would make it $25.6 million for his fully guaranteed 5th-year option for 2025 season. Joe says it's a yes very quickly.
Yeah, you got to stick with it. I mean, he's certainly had his ups and downs, but you're not going to find a better answer in 2025 than Trevor Lawrence for $25.6 million.
Yeah. And I think the added year is nice for Jacksonville to get a little bit more clarity on just what end of the starting quarterback spectrum, how high on that totem pole he's going to climb, which will make 2024 obviously a very important year for him.
Yep.
So say yes there. Do you just want to say no to the next two and be done with it?
Yeah, there's nothing to...
It's Zach Wilson, 2 to the Jets, and Trey Lance. The Cowboys now have to make that decision because they traded for the contract that he was playing on in San Francisco, which was his rookie contract.
Yeah, those are just, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to commit $22.4 million in 2025 to either of those players.
Right. Things get a little interesting at 4, Kyle Pitts to the Atlanta Falcons. This is where premium positions, this is the first time it really gets interesting. You know, on the first 4 years of a rookie contract for a player that you pick at number 4 overall for a tight end, it's going to put you on the upper echelon of the pay. But then the leap that's going to come, you know, he's a tier 3 player. He made the Pro Bowl his rookie season. It's less than $11 million for the fully guaranteed 5th-year option, which I would be inclined to take. I would say yes.
Oh, this is an absolute yes for me in a world where Cole Kmet's a $12.5 million a year tight end. I mean, Dalton, Noah Fant just got 10.5. Like, this is perfectly comfortable value for me.
So we're in on Kyle Pitts getting the 5th-year option.
Yeah.
Ja'Marr Chase, assuming a contract extension is not done, this is a yes, even though it's tier 4. It's almost $22 million. Doesn't matter. That's still a discounted wide receiver terms for Ja'Marr Chase. Chase's caliber anyway.
100%.
That's a yes, home run.
I think you apply the same stuff to Jaylen Waddle at 6.
Well,
and it's cheaper.
It's outrageous that the split is $6.3 million.
It's a real benefit for him to have not made a Pro Bowl to this point.
Right.
Maybe he's had Pro Bowl caliber seasons, but he hasn't gotten it. And the Dolphins are going to get a heck of a steal for $15.5 million in 2025.
Right. Yeah. So for less than 16 for Waddle, it's a slam dunk. He's been almost as productive as Ja'Marr Chase has been in their respective offenses. Now, Penei Sewell at 7, $19 million. Obviously, this is a home run hit of a draft selection. Detroit has always been heavily invested in from a cash perspective in the offensive line. So this feels like a no-brainer as well that Penei Sewell would be a yes for a 5th-year option.
One of the best young offensive linemen in the league. I think you go ahead and pick that up and start getting the extension done, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And ideally, he never plays a snap on the 5th-year option because he gets the extension done this summer.
Yeah, whatever. $23 million a year, give it to him. Don't think twice about it.
Jaycee Horn, cornerback, Carolina Panthers.
It's a little tricky here, right?
Yeah, because durability and availability has been kind of the thing with Horn. Now, he's been good when he's on the field.
So good. So good when he's on the field.
So I guess we talked recently about kind of the corner market going stagnant, right? Mm-hmm. And the player that's coming right behind Jaycee Horn in this conversation is Pat Surtain II. And he's a tier 4 player at 19.8. That'll make him what? The 3rd highest paid corner in the league?
Pretty high. Yeah, pretty high up there.
Like before he gets the contract extension done?
Yep.
So relative to the ceiling of the corner market, it's about 60% of it. You'd like to think that Carolina, with a team that doesn't have a lot of big money contracts on their books, you just shed the Brian Burns thing and didn't have to pay him $28 million per. You can afford it, so I think you should do it and see it through.
Dude, at 12.4, you're in Chidobe Awuzie territory, Jamel Dean, Travarius Ward. To me, the upside is worth it. And I know that there's always that caveat. Well, if he's healthy, you can just extend him. I don't know, man. Like I feel pretty comfortable here that I want to stay committed to this player for longer. That's what and the value to me is fine.
Yeah, the value is not a deal breaker.
Right.
Any issues with Surtain?
The compelling thing there is it 19? What is it?
19.8.
So he's the 3rd highest corner. Mm-hmm. Alexander, Ward, and then Surtain. So that's another one. That's very similar to Sewell's situation where it's like, okay, we're going to pick this up, but ideally you never actually play a down
right
on that 5th-year option.
I think everything that was applicable for Jaylen Waddle is applicable for Devonta Smith.
Yeah. So the top 10 was pretty straightforward. It's going to get a whole lot more interesting the rest of the way.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
And turndowns at 2 and 3 for quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Well, just draft good players.
The good players are the premium. All right, picks 11 through 20 coming up on the other side of it. Be sure to stick with us. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Have you ever wondered what you would do if you had an extra hour in your day? Would you exercise, read, spend time with friends, maybe catch up on some sleep? A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find out what matters most to you so you can do more of it. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for people who have experienced major trauma. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn.
All right. Pittsburgh Steelers have a decision to make on Justin Fields.
You can't do the Sam Darnold thing, right? You can't do it.
I think we already feel better about it not being the Sam Darnold thing because we didn't trade
204 and a 6.
Right. For Justin Fields. So that helps. But I think that alleviates the pressure to need to activate the 5th-year option. And what is Justin Fields realistically going to do in one season where he's not even guaranteed to be the starting quarterback that would push him past $25.6 million on his next deal?
There's no justification for it. I will say this about Justin Fields and the Steelers. I think him starting games in 2024 is absolutely inevitable.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yep.
It'll probably be pretty good.
Yeah, I would want him to. Mm-hmm. Like, unless Russell Wilson is just blowing it up. Like, to me, this is, okay, Russ, here's you get 4 games. Show us that you're a top-tier quarterback once again, or guess what? Fields is playing. I mean, that's how I'd attack it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be married to Russ when I'm paying him what? They're paying him minimum so that Denver can pick up the rest of the tab.
Yeah, they're doing it the right way. I don't have any objections to it, but there's my leash on Russ is going to be real small, man. Real small. Or real short, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
The time we'll take discussing pick number 12 will be real short too. Micah Parsons, tier 4, 5th-year option, $21.3 million, fully guaranteed. When he signs his next contract, it's probably gonna be 2/3 of what he gets.
Ooh, so you think mid-30s for Micah?
He'll be. I'll just say over 30. I'll say.
Yeah, I'll say. I was gonna ask you over under 30. I think we're both.
I'll take the over 30. On 30.
Yeah.
So yes, you'll take the 5th-year option if you need it, and let's just hope that they don't do what they did to Dak and string that one out and then put him on the franchise.
Man, the Cowboys and the contracts that they're so eager to hand out. Whether it's like Terrence Steele, like that just gets done. You don't even think about it.
But then these other like cornerstone players, you got.
Or who's that linebacker? Jalen Smith. Like, let's get that done right away. Mari Cooper, $20 million. Can't do it. Trade you away for a can of corn and a ham sandwich. I don't understand some of the business operations with Dallas, but that's not.
Rashawn Slater, 13, tier 3, so it's $19 million, fully guaranteed, 5th year. This is another well-deserving player. That for me is another yes.
Yeah, easy yes.
Alijah Vera-Tucker. Pretty crazy. He didn't even hit as a 3-year starter for the Jets. He didn't qualify for the play time because the injuries have been so robust.
A 3-year starter with a major asterisk. He's 250 snaps last year, 432 in 2022.
Hey, that blows the snaps that Marius Mims has taken the last 2 years out of the water.
That's a conversation for like 5 years from now.
15.3 offensive linemen all bucketed together for whatever reason.
I think we learned a lot from, and I know that these are not one-for-one parallels, so everybody get that out of your mind. I think we learned a lot from what Miami did with Austin Jackson, where, hey, you don't have to pick it up. We have questions. There are different questions with AVT than they were with Austin Jackson, but there's questions. And guess what? Austin Jackson answered the questions. What was it, week 10, something like that? He gets his extension.
It is a 3-year, $36 million contract extension, yeah.
I would slow play this with AVT. I would not be eager to have a hard, because it's guaranteed. Like, you make this decision, right. There's nothing you can do. This guy has another, like, the third season-ending injury in a row.
When it's also, because it's bucketed together, he's probably not going to play tackle for them again. So now you're talking 15. Like, where does that land on? Obviously, we had like the big spike in like guard spending.
Yeah.
With guys getting 15, 16, 17. But like, you're putting Vera-Tucker in that bucket right away. I would not activate a 5th-year option on Alijah Vera-Tucker.
And that says nothing about the caliber of player he is when he's healthy. He's been very good.
Right.
But your best ability is your durability or your availability. And right now, AVT's struggling there big time.
Jacksonville has another quarterback 5th-year option decision to make. This one has not sunk into me at all. That Mac Jones was traded to the Jaguars.
Right. It was like, I just saw it on the sheet. And I'm like, yeah, Mac Jones plays for the Jaguars. That's a thing.
Obviously, you're saying no to 25.6. He qualified for the playtime tier 2. You're not going to do that.
Hardest of passes.
Pretty hard pass here on 16 as well, though.
Mm-hmm.
Zaven Collins to the Cardinals. He is a tier 1 playtime player that is a $13.25 million fully guaranteed 5th-year option. Changed positions, so now he's playing on the edge, not playing stack linebacker.
Yeah.
The Steve Keim special gift that just keeps on giving, right? This is like the 5th time this has happened for players that were like early draft picks for Arizona. And maybe he figures it out and flips the switch. Maybe because there's such a dire need for edge play in Arizona, he gets the playing time volume and kind of turns the corner. I'd have a really hard time envisioning that would be a justification for a dollar point at over $13 million. So that's no.
Yeah. I agree that it's a no. I want to be careful to like not overly slander Zaven Collins, because I think he has made some strides. I think he's probably at least a yellow adequate starter for the Cardinals, but not at the point where I'm willing to make that hard commitment. I got to let that play out this year.
Pick 17, Alex Leatherwood is off the board altogether. He's no longer on his rookie contract, so that decision's been made by several teams. Or I guess technically all 32, nobody picked him up when he was cut for the waivers. So, no. Now, 18.
Yeah.
Jaylen Phillips for the Miami Dolphins, coming off of a season-ending Achilles tear. He is currently a tier 1 player, which puts him at 13.25, the same as Zaven Collins.
I think you take advantage of that. I think you pick that up for sure. I know the injury sucks, but he's awesome when he's on the field. I mean, when he's on the field, he's certainly positioned himself to be like one of the better pass rushers, like big dollars. Like if he was healthy, the APY is in the 20s, mid to high 20s at least at this point.
So I think that's where for Miami, they are a team that from a big contract perspective, they do have a little bit of a crunch, but I would take advantage of this too, because even if Phillips takes a while to come back from the Achilles, it looks like he's going to be back like pretty early. Like he's doing very well with his rehab. But say he doesn't turn the corner and then you're like not comfortable with a long-term outlook for Phillips for whatever reason, if he suffers another injury or something like that, for a pass rusher at that dollar amount with what he has on tape, you'd probably find a buyer for him too if you had to.
Yeah, 13 and some change. We're talking John Franklin Myers territory. Carl Granderson. Chase Young just got 13.
Right.
Dorrance Armstrong just got 11. Yeah, I'm good.
And Jaylen Phillips is like one of the Walter Payton Man of the Year candidates for Miami. That locker room does a lot of stuff in the community. So like there's a lot of appeal with Jaylen Phillips. And obviously I hope he's in Miami for a really long time. But just anytime you make that 5th-year option when there's an injury storyline,
Yeah, it's tough.
you do have to ask yourself, like, okay, what's the feasibility and the attractiveness if that question continues for us to potentially be able to transition away? And I think that would exist there for Jaelan Phillips if Miami needed it too.
I think it's helpful that he's entering his age 25 season as well, right? He's a young guy, so feel good about that.
Jamin Davis of the Washington Commanders, just short of $14.5 million as a stack off-ball linebacker.
I think this is a no. And that's not because I don't think Jamin Davis has developed, because I think he has. But obviously, this is a new situation in Washington with Dan Quinn. They brought in a couple of linebackers and Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner. I'm not saying that Jamin Davis can't be part of the long-term plans. I just need to find out this year in my system with this new operation if that's the direction I want to go.
Well, and they spent on not just Frankie Louvu, they brought in Bobby Wagner. So there's multiple hurdles potentially in front of you now that I think
playing time could be tough for him, dude. Like, especially because you know that they want to use Jeremy Chin for that other, like, whatever Dan Quinn special star linebacker role.
I think I wouldn't close the door on Jamin Davis continuing to be in Washington, but probably not through the avenue of the fifth-year option. They'd probably let this year play out and then sign an extension if they wanted him.
Yeah.
Last one, Kadarius Toney in this segment.
Pick it up, baby. Yeah, no. Pick it up. Get him out there as much as possible.
Give as much money to Kadarius as you can for Kansas City, right?
Yeah, it's coming. It's the breakthrough's coming.
No.
All right. The back part of the first round's coming up here after a quick message, so be sure to stick with us. The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel's making it even more exciting to get in on the action, because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use on betting on the NCAA tournament, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
So back third here, we got 12 picks, starting with Kwity Pate with the Indianapolis Colts. And look, we know if there's one thing Chris Ballard loves, it's keeping this nucleus together, taking care of your own. Now,
I'm kind of over Chris Ballard, man. I really kind of am. I really am, dude.
Well, I mean, what was it? Probably 3 years ago, we were pretty big champions of what Indy was building.
And those draft classes were really good.
Yeah.
It's that next hurdle, right? It's bringing in veterans to complement some of your draft hits, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know if he's the guy that can get him to that next level.
So Joe, bringing this back to pay, $13.38 million. It's a tier 1 fifth-year option. We know they have the cap space because they don't go crazy in free agency. This is a player who I think has flashed a little bit and looks to be starting to maybe turn the corner. He set a career high in percentage of snaps played this past year. He's been active or in the backfield the past 2 seasons as far as like run defending, in addition to the 8.5 sacks this past season. I'd pick this one up if I were the Colts.
Yeah, I can get there. I don't think this is an easy yes by any means. I think that the Colts cap position inspires me to say yes to this, and I think there's an upward trajectory with Kwity Pate. We kind of always felt like it would be a little bit of a process for him to realize his potential, and it's good to know that he's on that track.
Mm-hmm.
It's a yes for me circumstantially, but I think for other teams, I might have said no to this.
Okay, that's fair. Which brings us to Caleb Farley and the Tennessee Titans, who it just has not happened for yet, for a litany of reasons, some of which are beyond Caleb's control. But as we're 3 years in, having to make a $12.5 million decision, I don't think you have the upside tape of Jaycee Horn that you can cling to if you're Carolina, if you're Tennessee with this decision. And that would be a no for me as a result.
And Cheeto Awuzie, L'Jarius Sneed, Roger McCreary. Right. We don't have a spot. We don't have a spot for this.
Is there a better bargain on this list than Christian Darrisaw for 16?
Waddle might have a case, but Darrisaw's a baller, man.
He's a stud.
Baller.
So that's pick 23. It's a tier 2. Both, like you mentioned, Waddle, like those guys not getting to Pro Bowl is a little crazy. by this stage with how good they've been. But wide receivers loaded in the AFC and offensive tackle, they've got some really good dudes who've been playing a really long time in the NFC. So unfortunately, Darisaw, it was a difference of about $3 million. Over $3 million is the difference of what he'd have gotten if he was tier 3 versus what he is as a tier 2. So at 16, it's an outstanding value, slam dunk choice to activate that 5th-year option. Now we get the 2 running backs. Let's bundle this conversation at least to start together here. Najee Harris is a playtime player, which makes it a $6.79 million fully guaranteed, whereas Travis Etienne does not have the playtime qualifier, so he's only tier 1, which is a difference of about $600,000. He's 6.1 fully guaranteed for his 5th-year option.
The real benefit's the cost. It's not excessive, right? I mean, Aaron Jones signed for what, like 7?
1 year,
like,
7.
That's kind of where these running backs are getting paid. Singletary, what did he get? Like 6-7 million? Like these are not outrageous costs. I think that helps me say yes. I think you have questions about both of these. Najee Harris, like how dynamic is he? That's a big question, but he's been a productive player for them. And I thought he really, I mean, that run game picked up big time last year for Pittsburgh, and Harris was good. And then Travis Etienne started off so good and then kind of tapered off towards the end of the season. And now we're talking about, well, we got to get Tank Bigsby more involved. I think that they're both yeses, and that's really just rooted in that it's not an excessive cost for either player.
Let me ask you this, though. For either player, do you have any reason to think you couldn't, like, if they hit the open market, do you think they're going to touch that dollar amount?
Kyle, I agree with you on that. I think they would get close to that. Yeah, I think they would. After the season, if they have the season,
I think I take my chances with both of them. I think I take my chances with both of them. But I'll get you on my own contract.
Yeah, but you made these guys first-round picks. And in the case of Jacksonville, didn't they trade up for Etienne? Like, these are identity pieces for your football team. Whether we agree that they should be or not. Like, I feel like that's the case.
Hold on. Please hold. That was Balky's first draft class in Jacksonville. It was 2021. I would say no to both.
All right, we can disagree here.
Yep, that's fine. We're going to have to because I'm not coming off.
YouTubers, if you're watching on YouTube, let us know. Where do you stand on these 2 running backs? Pick them up or not?
Right.
And your point is, like, you're not saying to discontinue a relationship with the player. You're saying, I want the season to play out, and I want to bring you back on my terms.
Right.
I'm saying I want to play out on the 5th-year option and then say, sayonara, thanks for everything. We enjoyed 5 years together. You can go declines for some other
But doesn't that fly in the face of what your argument was, that these are identity pieces of your franchise because they were first-round picks? If your plan is just to milk 1 more year out of him and then kick him to the curb anyway and not pay him a second contract?
No, I got 5 years out of the player.
What's the difference between 4 years or 5 years out of the player if the difference is $7 million or $6 billion, $7 million?
It's the 5th year. I got 5 years out of the back. They can go decline and get lowered down by some other team. And that's going to pay them for longer.
I'd be trying to sign Najee for like 2 for 10, 2 for 11. And if you want to go the open market and somebody wants to give you $7 million annually plus as a player who has, let me get it right, almost 1,000 touches in 3 seasons, plus whatever they're going to run you into the ground in this year, go ahead. Go right ahead. But if I want to bring you back, I don't think the market's going to price me out to do it. Greg Newsome, corner, Cleveland, $13.3 million fully guaranteed for his 5th-year option.
I think Greg Newsome's been a good player for the Cleveland Browns. I think the challenge is that he's become a slot corner for them. And Taron Johnson's now the highest paid slot corner in the NFL at 10.1, and Kenny Moore just got 10.
Yeah.
Is this too big of a, this is too much, right?
Well, I guess not necessarily if your intent is to make sure he gets a contract extension. Dude, we gave Grant Delpit 12 per. And Grant's turned into a nice player for Cleveland too. But would you not agree that Greg Newsome's a better player at his respective position than Grant Delpit is?
Yeah, I would.
So
you're already paying Denzel Ward's the second highest paid corner.
Cleveland's paying everybody.
I know.
They're paying everybody. Cash spending to the moon.
The cap is not real, Kyle, obviously,
Well,
as evidenced by the Cleveland Browns.
did you hear what DaCosta went on talking about cash over cap annually and all that kind of stuff?
I know you're fired up. I saw that you tweeted about it. I didn't take the time to look into it, though.
Well, that's a story for another day. Right. But I don't know. Like, it would not be prohibitive to me to have him on 13 if I know I would want to have that as the fallback option and risk him hitting the open market because I couldn't pay him.
I think you have to ask yourself this question: Is Greg Newsome our long-term answer in the slot? If the answer is yes, then you offer him a 3-year, $32 million deal or whatever, beat Taron Johnson by a little bit. And then you can structure that in a way that's helpful for your cap situation. That's what I would do.
Just quick follow-up there. Cleveland, $336 million in cash spending for 2024.
It's the most in the league, I'm sure.
The highest.
Yeah.
I've tracked the last 5 years of cash spending. It's the highest in the league by at least $50 million in cash spending in the last 5 years. So they're spending. They're going for it.
They're trying.
For sure. We got a couple more here. Rashad Bateman, wide receiver with Baltimore at 14.3. That is a tier 1 fifth-year option. And it's also a no for me.
Yeah, it's a no.
It just hasn't come together.
Right.
Peyton Turner with the Saints, 13.3, tier 1, basic fifth-year option for him as a defensive end. And it's also a no for me there.
It's a big no.
Eric Stokes with the Packers, cornerback, just short of 12.5. It's a tier 1 fifth-year option.
It's a no for me.
What's that?
It's a big no for me.
Yeah, it's like I think about it a little bit more than the last two guys, but just he missed 14 games last season, missed half the season the year before that.
Right. Pretty good as a rookie, but that feels like 100 years ago.
Right. So I just think with the consecutive years being what they've been, even if the year one stuff was pretty good, I don't think you have enough to tie yourself to that big of a commitment and let this year play out and go from there. So I'd say no to that one as well. So we've got an ice cold here on the back 12. We got a winner here though, Greg Rousseau, Joe.
Yeah.
This isn't a playtime qualifier. This is only a tier 1. It feels like him and Jaylen Phillips are the two, like, I can't believe that guy didn't get playtime.
You Bills ain't playing anybody over 50% of the snaps on the D-line, man. You crazy? Brandon Bean was asked about this a couple weeks ago, and they said, what's the plan for Greg Rousseau in the 5th-year option? He goes, well, we haven't talked about it, but I don't see any reason why we wouldn't pick it up. That's what he said.
So, yes. Okay. Thanks, Brandon.
Right. A little more insightful these days.
It's a good value for Greg, too. He's been a good player and a good hit for Buffalo as a high volume, or not a high volume, but a highly efficient rotational guy from that front for Buffalo.
He's a starter. He just doesn't,
Odafe Oweh with the Baltimore Ravens. Missed 4 games this past season. They'd really love to have him hit, but I just don't think the performance has been where you would justify picking up $13.25 million.
I'd do it.
You would?
Yeah, I think we're underrating Odafe Oweh and what he's done to this point in his career. Like, his pass rush metrics this past season were phenomenal. Like, his pass rush productivity was better than Brian Burns, was better than Jonathan Grenard, was better than Danielle Hunter this past year. Like, I think because somebody came up to me, he's like, how are you going to like Chop Robinson when he wasn't productive? And look at Odafe Oweh, and he's not been productive in the NFL. I'm like, well, really? He had 54 pressures this last year and missed 4 games. And like relative to his pass rush snaps, he's been better than a lot of really good players that we think perceive out there.
Yeah, less than 40% of snaps played this past season for Baltimore, which I think is just where that perception comes from.
Right. I think with fans,
I'd love for you to be a volume player if you're going to get that kind of money, though.
Predictably, they might not do it because they just have been so weird with their edge rushers right throughout the years.
Yeah.
Like, everybody goes. Like, they feel like they treat those like other teams used to treat guards. Just get some other guy in here, man. It's unbelievable. So predictably, like, maybe they won't, but I think there's a stronger case than some people might want to admit that for Oweh, in my opinion.
How about Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who's our last pick here?
Probably not.
Seemed like the Bucks folks I talked to at the Combine were pretty lukewarm. So
big year for him, right? Like, no Shaq Barrett in the mix. I'm sure they're going to add.
Upcoming?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge year for him, but it's too late for a 5th-year option conversation that has to be made by May 2nd.
Yeah,
so
I'd agree.
I think that's a no as well. So how many no's did we have here?
Kyle, I took out a pen and paper to track them.
We talked about the other day. I don't have pens. They disappeared.
Yeah,
the pen gremlin came through my office and took all my pens. Schwenko, Oweh, Stokes, Turner, Bateman. I have Etienne and Harris, Farley, Tony, Jamin Davis, Zaven Collins, Mac Jones, Vera-Tucker, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson. We have 17 or 16 no's.
Does that include Leatherwood?
Leatherwood would be 17.
So
less than half the first round we have here.
Which is
it's about what we get.
Yeah.
About what we get.
Yeah.
So that is going to do it for us here on this episode of Locked on NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. We're out of here. Talk to you soon.